4 hours off now. All right. Good afternoon. Today is Monday, April 22nd, 2024. It's 5:03 p.m. If you could join me in Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could have a motion to excuse Ms. Wallace from today's
Make
meeting.
a motion to excuse Ms. Wallace from this evening's meeting.
Board, if you could do it as one motion so we don't get off on the motion numbers.
Absolutely.
And approve the agenda.
And make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's all you tonight.
Yes. I make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $383,285.17 for the 4/17/2024 payroll.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the the payment listing report in the amount of $318,913.42 for warrants through 4/18/24.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. We have minutes before us for the special trustee meeting from April 4th, 2024, and the regular trustee meeting from April 8th, 2024. Are there any changes to those? If not, do we have a motion to approve as presented?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for the April 4th, 2024 special trustee meeting and the April 8th, 2024 regular trustee meeting as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Perfect. At this time, we ask any citizens desiring to speak to come forward. Seeing none, we'll move and close that to old business. We have no old business. Move on to new business. And Mr. Rushing, if you can guide us and shepherd us through the next process.
Yes, Board. We have a couple of proclamations right before these become the recognition weeks for these various topics. First being Police Week, which is May 12th through May 18th. We do have a proclamation in front of you. I do recommend reading this in record so we can honor the women and men in the law enforcement service, as well as the following resolution, which is for National Teacher Week.
That one we'll read into the record.
Okay.
Yep. And then a couple of these we'll do as
As tradition, we have multiple copies, so we can give them to all of our partners, both Greene County Sheriff's Office, Beavercreek City PD, Ohio Highway Patrol, as well as Greene County Park Rangers.
Great.
Thank you. All right. I have a proclamation designating May 12th through May 18th as National Police Week. Whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas National Police Week is a collaborative effort of many organizations dedicated to honoring America's law enforcement community and gives special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. And whereas law enforcement officers strive to maintain a safe environment for all, often while facing significant challenges and dangers, and our community recognizes the important work and sacrifices officers make each day to protect the citizens of Beavercreek Township. And whereas the residents of Beavercreek Township are served by the Greene County Sheriff's Office, Greene County Parks and Rangers, City of Beavercreek Police Department, and the Ohio State Highway Patrol. And whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, and whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives in the line of duty, including Beavercreek Township Constable William Fogwell. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township do hereby proclaim May 12th through May 18th as National Police Week in Beavercreek Township, and encourage all citizens to join in honoring and recognizing our law enforcement officers. Beavercreek Township encourages you to initiate, support, and embrace new ways of honoring these critical public servants as they perform their duties in an especially challenging time. We publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. We dedicate these 7 days annually to recognize these great public servants, but we should not hesitate to make every day an opportunity to honor and show appreciation to those men and women serving daily in law enforcement to keep our community safe. Be it further resolved, the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township do hereby proclaim May 15th to be National Peace Officers Memorial Day to honor our law enforcement officers who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have been disabled in the performance of their duties, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And as you sign many of those, the next one is to recognize Teacher Week in partnership with the Beavercreek City School District.
I can hand you the gavel. I can take this. I'm going to pass the gavel to Ms. Dean so she can keep signing. And I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution number 202-404-22-admin-F. This is to recognize Teacher Week. Whereas teachers play an indispensable role in shaping the future of our society by imparting knowledge, nurturing minds, and instilling values in our youth. And whereas their dedication, passion, and tireless efforts contribute to the growth and development of individuals and communities. And whereas teachers inspire curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking, empowering students to reach their full potential and become engaged citizens in a globalized world. And whereas they go above and beyond their call of duty, often sacrificing personal time and resources to ensure the success of their students. And whereas teachers serve as mentors, role models, and advocates for fostering a supportive learning environment that promotes academic excellence and personal growth. And whereas the impact of teachers extends far beyond the classroom, shaping the fabric of our society and laying the foundation for a prosperous and equitable future. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township, Greene County, Ohio, do hereby proclaim May 6th through 10th, 2024 as Teacher Week, expressing our deepest gratitude and appreciation to teachers for their invaluable contributions to education and society.
Second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
You want to pass that back, or you want to keep it?
I'll pass it on back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. We'll make sure all the applicable entities receive their proclamation. We want to, again, extend our sincere gratitude to those who serve us each day, both in uniform and in classroom. Moving on to the next item of new business, as you sign those many proclamations. We do have a couple policy amendments recommended to you. Right now, we are going through several policies and procedures in our township handbook from time to time to ensure that, one, the intent and impact of the policy still keeps up with what our intention was, and then two, also keep up with any additional changes to statute as well as case law. The policy first being recommended for change is our travel expenses and mile reimbursements policy. This policy was originally approved back in 2013 and essentially lays out our travel reimbursement process for the township. As we have identified right now, we do issue credit cards to employees who do travel, and they have a up to amount of $44 per day in which they can expend for travel expenses. This is primarily for meals and incidentals. What we are finding the problem is that, one, we have an exposure by issuing these credit cards. Inevitably, the finance department receives calls about credit cards not working, they being declined, and having to go through the back office channels to try to figure out how to get that instrument to work. And the second item is that there is a audit process that we have a lot of internal hours trying to track and keep with having to track this reimbursement through the credit card. So what we are recommending is a per diem method. A per diem method is a proven best practice that many of our neighbors implement, and essentially uses the federal schedule for per diem rate. This per diem rate will be issued either as an advance prior to travel with an employee upon authorization of either their department head or township administrator, or they can submit it as a reimbursement if they fail to submit a advance. This per diem rate also is based off of location. So one of the items we find is obviously traveling to Columbus is much different than traveling to San Francisco, for a matter. So the federal per diem schedule uses zip code to indicate the per diem amount. And by doing this, it reduces our exposure of issuing the credit card, and two, reduces the internal cost of us having to track the receipts and ensure audit compliance. And we have reviewed this and recommend this to be a best practice. Happy to answer any questions.
So are you what is your plan as far as the unused portion of the per diem? Are you essentially issuing the per diem in advance and expending it then? Or are you requiring any accounting of that? And are they expecting them to return any unused portion?
There would not be any expectation to return. The only exception to that is prior to issuing the per diem, the employee is responsible to submit the conference schedule. So any meals provided by the conference, let's say there's a luncheon, that is subtracted from the per diem because we're not paying for it twice, essentially. Right. So ensuring that we don't double pay for a meal, anything outside of that would be issued to them, no exception.
And then what about travel and living expenses? How is that changing now that if they don't have a card any longer? So in the event that they were to travel to a conference out of state.
So mileage is tracked. Mileage portion of this policy has not changed. The mileage is issued the federal IRS schedule for mileage reimbursement. They also are able to use a township vehicle, and it is encouraged to use a township vehicle if applicable.
But as far as lodging, are we making those reservations for them?
Correct.
Okay.
We make all reservations for them. And then in the instance where we have to produce a credit card on file, we can do that by electronic means.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a good idea, I think, in general. Funny story, of business I owned years ago, we had employees that would love to go to Tokyo because the per diem was extremely high, and then they would pack mac and cheese packets so they could save their per diem. So very creative. But it was $250 a day, and they'd eat mac and cheese. So
There was a
place to
sample
go when
motion
you're
on
getting
file.
ready to have a baby. They'd go for a month, and they'd $250 a day. With that, Ms. Steen.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 202404422-admin-G. Adopt the amended travel expenses and mileage reimbursement policy as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next is a policy that you will see there's no red line because essentially this is existing policy. What we are doing is recommend extracting this policy and titling it as its own policy. Currently, this policy is embedded in with the last policy just adopted. And one of the items we're trying to solve is, quite frankly, making our township handbook easier to identify where the policies are. So this policy enables us to host or sponsor meetings, just for example, like we did for the Greene County Township Association. So we're trying to ensure that when an employee looks at the handbook, they can easily identify the applicable section and not have to look inside a different policy. So this policy is extracting that and just allows us to continue our practice of hosting and sponsoring meetings following the same payable procedure as we have currently in place.
Is there, Mr. Rushing, is there any monitoring as far as if there's public or elected officials at those events and the dollar value of the meal that or benefit that's provided?
We do not do any specific monitoring of that. What we do is we utilize the United States General Services Administration guidelines of what is an acceptable amount per cost for the employee.
I guess I'm
or for
talking
the
more from an
attendee.
ethics standpoint, the $25 threshold.
Yeah, we do not currently monitor that,
Okay.
but we can
Something
certainly
we should
keep that
just
in
be
mind.
cognizant of, or
Absolutely.
somewhere throughout as far as just best practices to make sure that we don't induce a problem
Right.
upon our guests.
On the sponsoring of meetings, we try to follow the per diem amount for hosting the meal. So let's say they recommend the federal schedule is $25 for the per diem, then our catering costs, we do not try to exceed that $25 per person.
I'm looking more at the gift of what an elected official can
Right,
receive.
the Ohio Ethics Commission,
So,
absolutely.
okay. Okay,
Motion 202404222-admin-H. I move to approve the hosting and sponsoring meetings policy as presented.
second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Krebs?
yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item under new business is due to various travel schedules, our next regularly scheduled meeting on May 13th, 2024, we have lack of a quorum that is planned. So we recommend that we cancel that meeting and just emphasize that if there is an emergent need to schedule a special meeting for the following week, we can discuss that. But as of right now, we have no such need to schedule a special meeting. So we are recommending canceling the May 13th regularly scheduled trustee meeting.
Make a motion 202404222-admin-I. I move to cancel the May 13th, 2024 regular scheduled trustee meeting as presented.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Krebs?
yes.
Thank you, Board. As we move along, we have no items under Sheriff's Office, Human Resources, Community Development and Risk, or Information Technology. But we do have an item under Finance Department. As it was announced at the last regularly scheduled meeting, the Ohio Auditor of State has announced that Beavercreek Township, for the first time ever, did receive the Ohio Auditor of State Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year 2022. And we certainly want to recognize the three members of the Finance Department who put in the effort to ensuring that we receive that. So I do recommend we have a proclamation in front of you that you feel free to read in the record. And also we can introduce the three Finance Department employees led by Finance Director Terry Molden, our Accounts Payable Specialist Nicole Martin, and Payroll Specialist Tori King.
Could the three of you come up to the podium just so I have some questions, please? I'm totally serious. Do you remember when Mrs. Graff was here?
The fiscal.
Yes.
Tori, don't be shy. Come on up. Go ahead and read your proclamation. Okay.
Resolution number 202404222-FIN-A, a proclamation recognizing the Finance Department. Whereas the Ohio Auditors of State's Office presents awards to public entities that meet specific criteria during their financial audit, and whereas among these awards is the Ohio Auditor of State Award presented to public entities for excellence in financial reporting in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. Whereas the criteria for Auditor of State Award is entries must file financial statements in accordance to GAAP, file them by their statutory deadline without extension, and receive a clean audit. In addition, the audit report cannot contain any findings for recovery, material citations, material weakness, significant deficiencies, uniform guidance, findings, or question costs. And whereas on February 28, 2024, Ohio Auditor of State Keith Faber announced that Beavercreek Township was awarded the Ohio Auditor of State Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting for fiscal year ended 2022. And whereas the Beavercreek Township Finance Department has and continues to implement proven best practices and internal controls to safeguard taxpayer funds and ensure transparency to the public. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township, Greene County, Ohio, do hereby express its gratitude to the Beavercreek Township Finance Department, and specifically Finance Director Terry Molden, Accounts Payable Specialist Nicole Martin, and a Payroll Specialist Tori King for being good stewards of taxpayer funds and being awarded the Ohio Auditor of State Award for the first time in Beavercreek Township's history.
Second with discussion.
Wonderful. Good job, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate
You
it.
want to call?
Yep. Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. The good news is, we always talk about managing expectations, is that once you've hit this top, it's anticipated that we won't lose that. Okay.
Thank you, Board. We'll now move on. We have no items on public service, but we do under Fire Department. So I'll introduce Chief Vanderboss to present a couple items for you.
Good evening, Board. We have two items. The first is a request to purchase 4 sets of fire gear. These are for our 4 new firefighters. I should say 4 of our 5 new firefighters. Our 5th came with gear. That's a fairly common thing when folks have gear that's of an unusual size. We'll try and either buy it from the old department at a prorated cost, or oftentimes we'll sell it if a firefighter leaves. So we do need 4 sets, and everything else is our normal spec. It's our normal vendor, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. And we don't need to approve anything to acquire the gear that he's bringing?
No, that was below the threshold.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
and it's not a purchase to this
Okay.
vendor, so it was a separate.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve for purchase request 24-fire-0183 to Phoenix Safety Outfitters for 4 sets of turnout coats and pants in the amount of $16,880, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
And then the second is we're requesting that you accept the resignation for retirement for firefighter Scott Addis. He was transferred to us, so I should have looked up his date of hire, but he's been with us several years now, but came with a lot of years of service from his prior employer. And so it is time for him to look at retirement, and we'd like you to accept his resignation. But he would remain eligible for reemployment if he so desired.
Is he at the end of drop? Has not exercised drop?
I'm not
or-
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not something that we're normally privy to specifically, so,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I make a motion number 2024042-fire-B. I make a motion to accept the resignation of firefighter Scott Addis effective May 14th, 2024. Firefighter Scott Addis is eligible for reemployment with Beavercreek Township.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. That's all the fire department has for you this evening.
Thank you. Ms. Frick,
I have nothing today.
Mr. Zahariev.
I have nothing, thank you.
All right, MVRPC, I don't know if anybody has any update from that.
No,
Mr. Rushing, did you attend that dinner?
I did not know.
You did not, okay. And TAC,
We'll have a report at the next meeting.
okay. Opioid Task Force, Ms. Wallace is not here unless anybody else has anything. Regional Planning, we're actually stacking, tomorrow evening will be the Executive Committee, immediately followed by the full commission, so Executive Committee is meeting at 5. There is no Beavercreek Township business on the agenda. And then Health Department,
The next meeting is the first Thursday of May, so the last meeting of May I will have a report.
right? School Superintendent, City Manager, Township Administrator,
No meeting. Meeting will be this Wednesday.
and Wright Pat Air Force Base Restoration Advisory Board and Water and Wastewater Committee.
Green County Water Wastewater Committee meeting is this week via Zoom.
Okay, Township Association,
We're all there.
we were all there.
We were all there.
Yep.
Successful event. Thank you to staff for hosting it.
Yeah, appreciate staff coming out to that and taking the time out of your evening. It was nice
very
to
nice,
nice to
thank
have a strong force. And we can hear every corner of the room that way too. Investment Oversight Committee, any luck pulling together
It's
a
gonna be probably looking at
late
everybody's
May
schedule
or
mid-May.
June? Okay. And from a 911 advisory, Chief Easter is not here. And we had what was anticipated to be a emotional meeting, I guess, of sorts, but it turned out not to be. Some of the discussion was related to why certain townships opted out of essentially approving the resolution. Some of those were valid concerns, some of those were more myth, and so the myths were busted, the valid concerns remain. More of a truth and disclosure type standpoint as far as how funds will be accounted for and allocated and distributed. And then we did vote essentially to recommendation. I had made a recommendation that we establish. We received the first distribution, which was about $10,000 higher than what the county would normally have received last year. So suggested that we not accept that as an expectation, back to managing expectations, but rather wait at least 3 months to 6 months to determine if that's a pattern or was that a spike. So we essentially decided as a committee to distribute based on the trailing 12 average of essentially what the county received last year, and then take that anything that exceeds that for the next 3 months at least, and establish, for lack of a better term, a reserve, set it aside to determine if it is truly excess or if that was a 1 month anomaly and next month it's going to be less. So if it turns out that that's consistent, I did ask if there's any seasonality to the receipts that the county, and they said no, that it's pretty flatline. About $26,000 a month is what they would normally get. So the anticipation is that we'll build that up, and then we'll use some of those funds to offset the if there's any build out expense for the PSAPs, and determine what those expenses are and how they should be distributed pro rata, and before essentially just distributing those excess dollars and determining we need to ask for money back later. So, Mr. Rushing, did I miss anything other than, as a township, I mentioned to Chief Easter that I'd like to see us be in a position by the next meeting to at least go forward with, what is our cost to date for Chief Easter's involvement, and at least establish an expectation of how we want to be paid, either on a monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual basis. I would suggest quarterly, most likely, but that way when we true up that reserve balance, we'll call it, we can also bill at the same time. So that was all I had on that one. Otherwise, if there's nothing else to come before the board, entertain a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G3, conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning dispute involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Come out of executive session and reconvene the regular meeting.
I make a motion to return to our regular scheduled trustee meeting from executive session.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes. Okay.
Board, as you're aware, there is a pending workers' compensation matter that involves the township, and there's been a recommendation by legal counsel handling that to resolve the matter. I am in agreement with that, and I think I would recommend that you go ahead and enter into a resolution to conclude that matter.
Okay. Do you have any questions or anything? Okay, pretty straightforward at this point, so.
Yes.
All right, very good.
I make a motion to authorize legal counsel and the township administrator to execute all documents necessary to effectuate a final settlement agreement and release and the confidentiality agreement.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
yes,
Thank you, Board. That's all we have this evening.
okay. If there's anything else to come before the board, otherwise we'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
yes.
Thank you.